right? It's a play scene Prabhupada recommended. Maybe we'll start from the play again. Hayagriva sat facing Prabhupada along with Prabhupada in his room. A few days before, Hayagriva had shown Prabhupada a play about Lord Chaitanya he had found in the library. And Prabhupada had said it wasn't bona fide. So Prabhupada decided to prepare an outline for a bona fide play and have Hayagriva write it. I will give you the whole plot complete, Prabhupada said. Then you all will have to do is execute it. Prabhupada was in a relaxed, jolly mood, intent to relating the events of Lord Chaitanya's life. He had prepared an outline of 23 scenes. That's big. And now he wanted to expound each one. Hayagriva had barely enough time to understand what Prabhupada was about to do, and almost no time to prepare himself for note-taking as Prabhupada began describing the first scene. First scene. He began is that people are passing on the road with kirtan just as we do. There is a very nice procession with mridang and kartals and that bugles, and all people are doing sankirtan in the ordinary way. We have to make a nice presentation. The second scene shows Kali as decorated blackish with royal dress and very ugly features. And his queen is another ugly featured lady. So they are disturbed. They will talk amongst themselves that there is a Sankirtana movement now. So now shall we prosecute our business in this age of quarrel. So how shall we prosecute our business in this age of quarrel, Kali Yuga? In that scene, there will be in one corner 2 or 3 people drinking. The scene will be like that. The age of quarrel personified and his concerts are sitting in the center. In one corner, someone is taking part in drinking, and in another part, somebody is illicitly talking of lust and love with human. In another section, there's a slaughtering of a cow, and in another section, gambling. In this way, the scenes should be adjusted. And in the middle, the ugly man, Kali, and ugly woman will talk that we are now in danger. The Sankirtan movement has been started. What to do? In this way, you have to finish that scene. Then the third scene is very nice. Rasa dance. Hayagriva interrupted. We had some of his own ideas about what he called the dramatic point of view. I think Hayagriva said, strongly articulating his words, this can apply for the whole world in the sense that the names may be Indian, but I think the exhibition you described of the assembly of Kali and his concert, sin, and the exhibition of illicit sex and slaughterhouse can all be from Western prototypes. Srila Prabhupada said that he had no objection to Hayagriva's suggestion, but that he didn't want people to think he was singling out Westerners, as if they were the only ones who committed illicit sex. Hayagriva was about to reply, but decided that this was no time to quibble. Swamiji was eager to go on describing the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada, Rasa dance means Krishna and Radharani in the center and the gopis are surrounding. You have seen that surrounding scene when they were dancing with us the other day in the park, hand to hand. Hayagriva, yes. Prabhupada, so one Krishna and one gopi, they are dancing. That should be the scene. Then the Rasa dance should be stopped, and Krishna will talk with the gopis. Krishna will say to the gopis that, my dear friends, you have come to me in the dead of night. It is not very good, because it is the duty of every woman to please her husband, so that your husband will think if you come in such dead of night. What your husband will think if you come in the dead of night. So please go back. I'm amazed Prabhupada pick up these scenes for the first play. Anyway, so to have summary back. Here the preparation for play is going on. Hayagriva mentioned that he got a play of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada said, "Now I'll describe better in bona fide way." So he has a 23 scene play. First scene is all the people will be doing Sankirtan. Then the second scene is Kali personified with his concert. We'll be discussing now. Kali, when there is a Kali means illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating will be there. The scene will present that, and center the Kali will be talking how will we execute our work now because the Sankirtan has started. And Prabhupada also has the third scene about Rasa dance, where Krishna and Radha will be dancing, and they will third scene will, okay. Yeah, there's some Hayagriva has some points that we will go through further. So here he says that you have Krishna is addressing to gopis that, my dear gopis, we all know that it came from Chaitanya Charitamrita. My dear gopis, you left everything and came in the dead of the night. Please go back. What your husband and everyone will think. This is what so far. Can you?
So in this way, the gopis will reply that you cannot request us to go back, because with great difficulty and with great ecstatic desire we have come to you, and it is not your duty to ask us to go back. In this way, you arrange some talking that Krishna is asking them to go back, but they are insisting, no, let us continue our rasa dance. Then, when the rasa dance is finished, the gopis will go. And then Krishna will say, these gopis are my heart and soul. They are so sincere devotees, they do not care for family encumbrances or any bad name. They come to me, so how shall I repay them? He was thinking, how shall I repay their ecstatic love? So he thought that I cannot repay them unless and until I take up their situation to understand me. But I myself cannot understand me. I have to take the position of the gopis, how they are loving me. So with the consideration, he took the form of Lord Chaitanya. Therefore, Krishna is blackish and Lord Chaitanya is the color of the gopis. The whole life of Lord Chaitanya is the representation of the gopis. Love toward Krishna, that should be painted in the picture of this scene. Do you have anything to ask? Hayagriva. This is his determination to incarnate as Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya, yes. Hayagriva, in order to Prabhupada, in order to appreciate Krishna in front of a gopi,
in the form of a gopi,
just like I have got dealings with you. So you have got your individuality and I have got my individuality. But if I want to study how you are so much obedient and loving to me, then I have to go to your position. It is very natural psychology. You have to paint in that way.
Okay. So even I was wondering what Prabhupada is trying to tell. Prabhupada is giving this, the purpose of Lord Krishna's appearance in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this scene, third scene, is going to portray the conversation between Lord Krishna and the gopis. He let everyone go, please go, but they said they will stay. Now Krishna is feeling grateful that how much determination, sacrifice they have. They're willing to take any kind of risk for his sake. How will I repay this back? I cannot repay back to these gopis. Even I cannot understand their love for me. So in order for me to understand, I must take their position. So as soon as he this, then it took the form of Lord Chaitanya. So just for the people to understand the purpose of Lord Chaitanya is coming. Then Hayagriva is asking, this is his determination to incarnate as Lord Chaitanya? Prabhupada says no. Yes, because in order to understand, he was giving an example, to understand you, you all giving, I must take all of your position. This is very natural psychology. You have to paint in that way. So he's giving the responsibility to Hayagriva to summarize. Yeah, second two.
Prabhupada described and explained one story after another. Most of them new to Hayagriva. Hayagriva couldn't properly spell or even pronounce the names. He didn't know who Lord Chaitanya's mother was or whether Nityananda was a devotee. And when Prabhupada told the story of Kshirachora Gopinath, the deity who stole condensed milk for his devotee, Hayagriva got confused and thought Prabhupada had said that Lord Chaitanya had stolen the condensed milk. Prabhupada, no. Oh, you did not hear? Chaitanya, after seeing the deity, he was sitting and seeing, and meantime, Nityanand Prabhu narrated the story how the deity's name became Kshirachora Gopinath. You do not follow me? Hayagriva groped. Nityananda? Prabhupada, Nityananda was going with Lord Chaitanya. Hayagriva, Nityananda was narrating this to Lord Chaitanya? Prabhupada, yes, the deity was known as Kshirachora Gopinath. The story, Prabhupada repeated for the third time, was narrated that formerly he stole one pot of condensed milk for his devotee. Hayagriva, now what direct relationship does this have to Lord Chaitanya? Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya visited this temple. Anyone in those days going to Jagannath Puri from Bengal had to pass that way. And on the way, the Kshirachora Gopinath temple is there. So everyone used to visit. Formerly, Madhavendra Puri also visited. And for him, the deity stole the condensed milk. From that time, the deity is known as Kshirachora Gopinath. That story was narrated to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So while sitting before the deity, the story was narrated. And Chaitanya Prabhu realized that God is so kind that sometimes he steals for his devotee. This is the significance. So here the scene should be arranged that it is a very nice temple, the deity is within, and Lord Chaitanya has entered while chanting Hare Krishna. And then he saw the worship, arati. These things are to be shown in this scene, and a little story about him. That's all. So here, Prabhupada is narrating the scene where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu are about the pastime of Kshirachora Gopinath, and this was again like new to Hayagriva. He did not understand like who was narrating to him, and then Prabhupada clarified that to him that Nityananda Prabhu was narrating this to Lord Chaitanya, and he also told them how the deity's name became Kshirachora Gopinath, like basically the Lord stole condensed milk for his devotee, and there's a reason how the deity name is Kshirachora Gopinath. And this one comes on the way from Jagannath to Bengal, and that this happened when Madhavendra Puri was traveling that way. And then this narration, Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Chaitanya were going back to Bengal from Jagannath Puri, and when they entered the temple, Nityananda was telling Lord Chaitanya the story of Kshirachora Gopinath. And Prabhupada says that when they enact this play, they'll have to show Lord Chaitanya entering the temple, and that Aarti is happening. And Prabhupada also mentions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like realized that God sometimes steals for his devotee, and he says this should be signified in that scene.
AJ?
When Prabhupada told of Lord Chaitanya's visit to the Sakshi Gopal temple, Hayagriva again got lost. Do you follow? Prabhupada asked. No, Hayagriva chuckled, no. Eventually, Hayagriva stopped asking questions and interrupting. Although he had very little knowledge of the identity or meaning of the characters, As soon as he had heard a little about them, he had been trying to adjust and rearrange their activities from the dramatic point of view. Prabhupada had raised no objections to Hayagriva's inquiries. In fact, Prabhupada had invited them so that Hayagriva can understand how to present the play. Hayagriva, however, decided to first try to hear what Prabhupada was saying. By the end of the first hour of their talk, Prabhupada had narrated many scenes from the first half of Lord Chaitanya's life. His teasing of the Brahmanas by the Ganges at age 5, his civil disobedience movement against the Muhammadan magistrate, his accepting the renounced order at age 24, his last meeting with his beloved mother, his traveling to Puri and touring South India, his meetings and instructing disciples like Sarvabhauma, Ramananda Rai, and Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. Finally, Prabhupada's morning schedule permitted him to go no further. It was time for him to bathe and take lunch. The next day they would meet again. At the next section, Hayagriva listened more carefully, and the transcendental scenes came quickly, one after another, as Prabhupada described each scene, speaking the words and thoughts of Lord Chaitanya and his associates. Prabhupada seemed to be seeing the scenes enacted before him. He especially became moved when he spoke of Lord Chaitanya and Haridas Thakur. The life of Haridas Thakur, Prabhupada said, is that he was born in a Mohammedan family. Some way or another, he became a devotee, and he was chanting 300,000 times, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made him the Acharya, the authority of chanting. Therefore we glorify him, Namacharya, Haridasa Thakur Ki Jai. Because he was made the Acharya, the authority of chanting Hare Krishna. When Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, Haridas Thakur decided, my dear Lord, you are leaving Navadvipa. What is the use of my life? Either you take me or let me die. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, why shall you die? You come with me. So he took him to Jagannath Puri. In Jagannath Puri, because he considered himself born of a Mohammedan family, Haridas did not enter the temple, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him a place at the Kasanatha Mishra's house. There he was chanting, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sending him prasad. In that way he was passing his days, and Chaitanya I'm struggling today. And Chaitanya used to come and see him daily. Sorry about that. Hayagriva at first was trying to change things and kind of do a little dramatic interpretation of the events and put his own little spin on things. But as a result, Prabhupada used that as an opportunity to really teach him about a lot of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And most of these, all of these we read, previously. And it was that was kind of the whole point of what Prabhupada was doing, was to be able to teach Hayagriva about this. And, it ended up, after the first hour, they were still going, and the next day they were able to continue going and, talking about all the different pastimes. And then, on the second day, that's when Prabhupada began to tell him more about Haridas Thakur, and chanting that he was chanting, was it 300,000 holy names, chanting all day, and he was the Acharya of chanting, the Namacharya, because he was just so dedicated to praising Krishna, despite his religious, or his background being, I guess, is Muhammadan Muslim? Is that?
Yeah.
So despite him being Muslim, and coming to Krishna consciousness in a probably an unusual way, he embraced it fully, and he then was completely dedicated to Krishna and Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah, somehow very handful Muslim people also devotees of Lord Krishna. There's a Pathan Vaishnava is also there. Did we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita the Pathan Vaishnava? Anyone remember when we are reading? Pathan means Mohammedan. They are also Muslims. In Jagannath Puri also, the few great devotees has come up. Recently also, when Jagannath Rath Yatra supposed to be carried out, but it was not done. lot of hesitations. So one Muslim man also he recommended, wrote to government, you cannot. It is said that they allowed to do the Rath Yatra Kart festival this year based on this man's petition only. He said that, this is the only chance we get to see the Jagannath out. So that the king of whoever the authority in the Jagannath, he said that his petition was more powerful. That's why Jagannath they approved to have the first festival this year. The sharing is a different subject, but sharing. Okay. Prasanthi?
When Lord Chaitanya took sannyasa, Haridasa Thakura decided, "My dear Lord, you are leaving Navadvipa. Then what is the use of my life? Either you take me or let me die." So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "No, why shall you die? You come with me." So he took him to Jagannath Puri. In Jagannath Puri, because he considered himself born of a Mohammedan family, Haridasa did not enter the temple. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him a place at Kasinada Mishra's house. There he was chanting, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sending him prasadam. In that way, he was passing his days, and Chaitanya used to come and see him daily. Srila Prabhupada wanted a scene for the passing away of Haridasa Thakura. Hayagriva, is this the same Haridasa the Mohammedans threw in the river? Yes, Prabhupada said. Then very casually Hayagriva mused aloud. So he finally met his end there in this fifth scene. Prabhupada hesitated. Here again Hayagriva revealed his lack of transcendental knowledge, talking as though Hayagriva's passing away was the same as an ordinary.
Haridas passing away.
Haridas passing away was the same as an ordinary man's meeting his end. All right, Hayagriva cued him. What is this particular incident? Prabhupada, this particular incident is significant. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a Brahmana and he was a sannyasi. According to social custom, he should not even touch a Mohammedan. But this Haridas Thakura was a Mohammedan, and yet at his death he took the body himself and danced. And he put him in the graveyard and distributed prasadam. Because Haridasa was a Mohammedan, he did not enter the temple of Jagannath Puri because the Hindus were very strict. Haridasa was a devotee, but he thought, why should I create some row? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appreciated Haridasa's humble behavior. Although he had become a devotee, he was not forcibly going to the temple. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was daily coming and seeing him. While going to take bath in the sea, he will first of all see Haridasa. Haridasa, how are you doing? Haridasa will offer his respect and he will sit and talk for some time. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will go and take his bath.
I don't know where you started.
I think it's down. It's down.
Down?
Yeah, further down. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will decide to take sannyasa, and then Haridasa will say, if you are going away, then what is the use of my life? I will take my life. I'm not going to live. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, you don't have to die. You can come with me to Jagannath Puri. And then he will not enter the temple of Jagannath Puri because he comes from a Mohammedan family and only Hindus are allowed there. So so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will give him a place at Kashinath Mishra's house and will send him prasadam every day. Jagannath prasadam every day. And then in between Hayagriva, Prabhupada says about, we'll keep a scene about the passing away of Haridasa, but Hayagriva doesn't understand, and then he comments that, oh, then he meets his end. But Prabhupada explains him. And then and it also talks about Haridasa and association with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always used to visit him daily before going to bath. He will sit with him. Haridasa will offer his obeisances. Even though he is not going to Jagannatha's temple every day, he is getting darshan of Lord every day.
That's it. I can hope you got some clarity here. You had a question when we were reading about Chaitanya Charitamrita. Why Haridas Thakur, Sanatan Goswami, and Rupa Goswami, when they came to Jagannath Puri, why they were not entering, right? Remember?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So basically here, because they're humble and they don't want to create any scene to it. They've just followed the protocol of Jagannath Puri. Jagannath Puri. See what more they need to go, because Jagannath himself is outside. They know that we are with Jagannath. In another sense, Lord Jagannath is personally sending them prasadam, everything, right? So they know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Jagannath himself. Anyway, so still at least it gives more clarity here, Prabhupada's explanation. They didn't want to create any scene. Nipa?
Hare Krishna. In this way, one day when he came, he saw Haridasa not feeling very well. Haridasa, how is your health? Yes, sir, it is not very. After all, it is the body. Then the third day, he saw that Haridasa is going to leave his body today. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, Haridasa, what do you desire? Both of them could understand. Haridasa said that this is my last stage. If you kindly stand before me. Srila Prabhupada became caught in the intense spiritual emotions of the scene, as if it were happening, as if it were happening before him. He closed his eyes. He stopped talking. Then he began again slowly, haltingly. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood before him and he left his body. Prabhupada sighed and became silent. Haigriva sat staring at the floor. When he glanced up, he saw that Swamiji was crying. Prabhupada quickly summed up a few last scenes and ended his outline. Now you write, he told Haigriva, and I shall make some addition or alteration. This is the synopsis and framework. Now you can proceed. Haigriva left the room. The material was lengthy, and whether he would ever write the play was doubtful. But he was thankful to have received this special discourse. Sitting on a bridge table in the student lounge, chanting into a little microphone while his followers played their instruments, Prabhupada began the Kirtana at Stanford University. At first, there were about 20 students, but gradually more entered the lounge and gathered around. Everyone was chanting. Then suddenly the lounge became transformed. As more than 200 Stanford students, most of them completely new to the Hare Krishna mantra, danced and chanted with as much enthusiasm as the most uninhibited hate Hashbury crowd. Prabhupada led the Kirtana for more than an hour. In his talk afterwards, he explained what they had all just experienced. This Hare Krishna dance is the best process for getting out of this illusion that I am this body. Our society is trying to distribute to the world the priceless gift of the Lord. You did not understand the words, but you still felt the ecstasy to dance. So, in, it was said like how uh, Haridasa was not feeling well, and Prabhupada is asking him, how's your health? And he says, it is not very well. After all, it is a body. And on the third day, uh, Prabhupada could see that Haridasa is going to leave his body. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, asked him, Haridasa, what would you desire? Oh, if I'm wrong, it's Prabhupada realized that on the third day, Haridasa is going to leave the body, not right?
No, 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 no. No. Okay, so Prabhupada is narrating the story to Hayagriva about Haridas Thakur, right? So now the scene is continuing. We read in the previous, I think Prasanthi read, you continue the scene that the scene is still continuing. Haridas is not feeling well. This is a very intense situation. So Prabhupada is, feeling this. Hayagriva cannot understand very well, but Prabhupada understands the mood. So he's going to leave the body. He saw Haridas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw that Haridas is going to leave his body today. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Haridas, "What do you desire?" So this is the scene Prabhupada suggesting you should have this in the scene, the conversation. So Haridas said that this is my last day. If you can kindly stand before me. I mean, you have to understand that because neither we are dying at this time, nor we have these devotional symptoms, nor our relationship with Lord Chaitanya that strong. That's why we don't. But it's a great emotional feelings. As soon as Prabhupada narrated this, his tears came from his eyes, and but Hayagriva not, because he's ordinary. He's beginner. He doesn't know. So anyway, he noticed that these emotions from Prabhupada. Now, then Prabhupada quickly summed up the few last scenes and ended while. So he told that he will make the additions, alteration needed. But here, Prabhupada is giving the whole theme of the place. So you can summarize this section.
So, sitting on a rich table in the student lounge and while chanting into the microphone, his followers played the instrument and Prabhupada began the Kirtana at Stanford University. At first, there were only 20 students, but gradually there were more and more students around entered the lounge. Everyone started chanting. The lounge became transformed, and there were more than 200 students at the 100 Stanford students. Most of them completely new to the Hare Krishna mantra, but they chanted as much with the enthusiasm as the uninhibited hate Ashbury crowd. Prabhupada led the Kirtana for more than an hour. In his talk afterwards, he experienced that Hare Krishna is the best process of getting out of the illusion that I am this body. And our society is trying to distribute to the world the priceless gift. Uh, he says you did not understand the words, but you still felt the ecstasy to dance. Like though people did not understand the words, they still had the uh, ecstasy to dance to the Hare Krishna mantra.
Thank you. Srikar or Sridhari?
Prabhupada took questions from the audience. Everything proceeded in a standard fashion until someone asked whether college students should respond to the military draft. Prabhupada replied that since they had elected their own government, there was no use complaining if the government told them to go to war. But some of the students, the same students who had chanted and danced only minutes before, began to shout, "No, no." Prabhupada tried explaining his point, but they raised their voices in anger until the hall became a bedlam of shouting. Finally, Srila Prabhupada picked up his kartals and began chanting again, and the dissenters left. The next day, the Palo Alto Times ran a front page story with headlines and a photo of the Kirtan. Ancient trance dance features Swami's visit to Stanford. Hold on there a minute, all you, with it people. There's a new dance about to sweep the country. It's called the Swami. It's going to replace the Frug, Vachu, Swim, and even the good old barnstorm. Why? Because you can do any old step to it and at the same time find real happiness. You can rid yourself of the illusion that you and your body are inseparable. The chant started quietly but gained volume as more people joined in. After half an hour, a long-haired youth with 3 strings of red beads around his neck stood up and began to dance to the music. He closed his eyes in ecstasy and held his hands palms up shoulder high. 2 girls soon followed him. One had a string of bells around her neck. A bearded fellow with a with a fluorescent pink skull cap joined in, still beating on his tambourine. So here you see at the Stanford University, after the Kirtan in the class, Srila Prabhupada started taking questions. So in the beginning it went well, and suddenly, somebody asked Prabhupada a question that should they respond to the government's call and then join the military draft? And then Prabhupada said that since you all have elected your own government, you should not complain and then you should go to the war. But that student he completely disagreed and then he began shouting no and no. Actually, Prabhupada was trying to explain his point, but then again he was in anger and then he was not listening. And then he kept on shouting, and then Prabhupada finally picked up his kartal and started chanting again. And then those people left who were opposing. And the next day, there was an article published in the Palo Alto Times about this event at the Stanford University, and then it was mentioned that they want to name this dance as the Swami, and then it was also mentioned that this is like going to replace all the dance which was traditionally there in the country. Why? Because in this new dance they can still follow their old steps and then chant, and then they can find real happiness. And because of chanting, they can get rid of the illusion that the body and the soul are inseparable. And then it was mentioned about how chanting all started, how people joined, and then and how all of them joined.
The Swami cut in a microphone in front of him, and the added volume provoked others to chant and stomp more loudly. A pretty girl in a sari danced as if in a hypnotic trance. A short, dark man, neatly dressed in suit and tie, threw off his shoes and joined in. A young math professor did likewise. A pretty blonde 3-year-old girl rocked and swayed in one corner. Suddenly, most of the audience was dancing and chanting. The pace grew faster and faster. Faces streamed with sweat. The temperature soared. Then it all stopped. Srila Prabhupada was pleased with the article and asked for some photocopies of it. What are they calling the dance? He laughed. The Swami? Across the top of the Kirtana photo he typed, everyone joins in complete ecstasy when Swami Bhaktivedanta chants his hypnotic Hare Krishna. The devotees got Prabhupada an engagement at a YMCA, where the audience consisted almost entirely of children. The devotees had decorated the hall with posters of Krishna and had hung a big sign with the Mahamantra on it. The children chanted along with Prabhupada during Kirtana. Just before the lecture, Gurudas reminded him, maybe the talk should be simple, since they are all between 9 and 14 years old. Prabhupada nodded silently. So here again, the description in the article was continuing like how people were dancing in ecstasy, and like the pace grew faster and faster, and when almost all the audience were dancing and chanting, and even the temperature was soared, and all of a sudden it stopped. And Prabhupada was pleased with the article and asked some of the photocopies of it. And reading the title of the article, Prabhupada was laughing, like what they call the dance. Like, is it the Swami? And it was written that everyone joins Prabhupada in complete ecstasy when he chants his hypnotic Hare Krishna mantra. And one of the devotees got Prabhupada an engagement at YMCA,
and there almost the audience were children. So the devotees decorated the hall with Krishna posters and a big sign of the Hare Krishna mantra. And Gurudas reminded Prabhupada just before the kirtan that maybe the talk should be very simple, as the children are between 9 and 14 years old, and Prabhupada nodded silently.
Brajespu, you can read.
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, is there a student? We have to start from here reading, right?
Yes.
Is there a student here who is intelligent? Prabhupada began. No one responded. After a moment, a 12-year-old boy, urged by his teachers and fellow students, raised his hand. Prabhupada mentioned for him to come forward. The boy wore thick glasses, short pants, and a blazer, and his hair was combed back very neatly. Pointing to the boy's head, Prabhupada asked, "What is that?" The boy almost scoffed at the simpleness of the question. "My head." Prabhupada then pointed to the boy's arm and said quietly, "What is that?" "My arm," the boy said. Prabhupada then pointed to the boy's foot. "What is that?" "My foot," the boy answered, still looking incredulous. "Yes," Srila Prabhupada said. "You say this is my head, my arm, my foot, my body, but where are you?" The boy stood perplexed, unable to answer Prabhupada's simple question. "We say my hand," Srila Prabhupada continued, "but who is the owner of my hand?" "We say my hand, so that means someone owns my hand. But where does the owner live?" "I do not say I hand, I say my hand. So my hand and I are different. I am within my body and you are within your body. But I am not my body and you are not your body. We are different from the body. Real intelligence means to know who I am." Haight Ashbury's psychedelic shop, a popular hippie gathering place, had extended to Prabhupada many invitations to come and speak. After the mantra rock dance, the hippies there had put a sign in the window, "A night of consciousness." Also, in response to the mantra rock dance, they had opened a meditation room in the rear of their store. But since the hippies at the psychedelic shop were almost always intoxicated, Prabhupada's followers had said that it wouldn't be a good idea for Prabhupada to go. But the hippies kept entreating. Finally, the devotees relented, advising Prabhupada it might be all right for him to go. So one Saturday night, Prabhupada and two devotees walked over to Haight Street to the psychedelic shop. Young people crowded the streets, hippies sitting along the sidewalks, selling hashish pipes and other dope paraphernalia, homosexuals, widely costumed hippies with painted faces, small groups smoking marijuana, drinking, singing, and playing guitars, a typical evening on Haight Street. So here, Srila Prabhupada is convincing the most, convincing the boy about the body and the soul. And the most famous example what Prabhupada gives about asking, "Who are you?" and like that. And the boy is in such a ignorance that he could not even understand that. And Prabhupada is explaining. So this was the kind of crowd Prabhupada was dealing with in that time. And Prabhupada is saying that you have to come to the level of real intelligence, and that is to know who I am. And then the description is given by Satsarup Maharaj about the Mantra Rock festival, about the kind of scenario is there. And Prabhupada is insisting to visit the shop where people are coming and visiting, and different kinds of people are there. So Prabhupada was practically in a place where there is complete Maya, we can understand. So it's glories of Prabhupada that he had compassion for everyone of every kind of people from coming from all areas. Thank you.
Yes. And one interesting thing is Prabhupada asked to the children,
Yes.
he put the right program for the children. He asked, anyone here is intelligent. So basically, he doesn't have to call anybody. So he's
Right.
intelligent already. You're intelligent. You're the most intelligent everyone, but you cannot answer this. So basically, all others are gone.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's
Vijayan Prabhu?
At the Shadelic shop, marijuana and tobacco's smoke hung heavy in the air, mingling with the smell of alcohol and bodies. Prabhupada entered the meditation room, its ceiling and walls covered with madrasas, and sat down. The room was full of hippies, many lying down, heavily intoxicated, looking up at him with half-closed eyes. He spoke in a low voice, but his presence somehow held their attention. Although lethargic, the group was appreciative, and after Prabhupada had finished, those who were still conscious expressed their approval. On Saturday, April 1, near the end of his stay in San Francisco, Prabhupada accepted an invitation from Love Gottlieb, head of Morning Star Ranch, a nudist hippie commune. Morning Star was a bunch of young people living in the woods. The devotees explained to Prabhupada. The hippies there had spiritual aspirations. They grew vegetables and worshipped the sun. They would hold hands and listen to the air. And naturally, they were involved in lots of drug taking and free sets. When Law came in the morning to pick up the Swami, they talked, and Prabhupada gave him a rasagolla, sweet made of bite-sized balls of curd simmered in sugar water. After a few minutes together in Prabhupada's room, they started for Morning Star, 60 miles north of San Francisco. Love Gottlieb. I told Swamiji to fasten his safety belt. He said no. He said Krishna will handle it or something. So on the way out, I was showing off all my vast erudition in having read a biography of Ramakrishna. That's when Bhaktivedanta gave the best advice to the aspirant I ever heard. We were talking about Ramakrishna and Vivekananda and Aurobindo and this and that. So he said, putting a gentle hand on my knee, when you have found your true path, all further investigation of comparative religion is merely sense enjoyment. So this passage starts with the situation at the Shaitlik shop, where all the marijuana and the tobacco smoke was heavy in the air, and also like alcohol and bodies. When Prabhupada entered the meeting room, it's on the wall were everything covered with madrasas, and he sat down. And the room was like full of hippies who are like heavily intoxicated, and they were looking at Prabhupada with half-closed eyes. And Prabhupada spoke in a low voice, but somehow his presence his presence invited their attention, and the people who are like conscious over there, they like appreciate what Prabhupada mentioned. And on April 1st, at the end of his stay at San Francisco, Prabhupada received an invitation from Law Gottlieb, who was a head of Morning Star Ranch, which was a nudist hippie commune. And Morning Star was like a bunch of young people who were living in the woods, and they had their spiritual aspiration. They grew vegetable and they worshiped the sun. So naturally, they were involved in a lot of drug taking and free sets. And when Law came in the morning to pick up Swami, and they had talked briefly, and Prabhupada gave him Rasgulla. And after a few minutes, they started for the Morning Star, which is like 60 miles to the north of San Francisco. And during the travel, Law Gottlieb asked Swamiji to put the safety belt, but Prabhupada mentioned that Krishna will handle it. And also, he was like Law Gottlieb was showing his erudition in the biography of Ramakrishna, and they were talking about Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and Aurobindo, and for that Swamiji replied that if one found the true path, and all the investigation of the religion will be like merely a sense enjoyment.
let's see what Prabhupada says further. Situated in a forest of redwoods, more than 200 feet tall, or they went to Redwood Garden also, 200 feet tall, Morning Star Ranch occupied what had once been an egg farm. Some of the land had been cleared from farming. There were a few tents, some unsubstantial little huts, a couple of tree houses. But AJ, I didn't ask, did you read today?
I did, yeah.
You did? Okay. But the only decent insulated buildings was Low's place, an old chicken house. The commune had about 100 full-time members, with the number of residents rising as to many as 300 on the weekends in warm weather, when people would come out to work in the garden and or just walk around naked and get high. Looks like a very interesting place, huh? On earth. Prabhupada arrived at 1 in the afternoon on a beautiful sunny day. He first wanted to rest, so Lo offered his own house. Walking to Lo's place, Prabhupada noticed a few nude men and women hoeing in the garden. One of the workers, a short, stocky young man, Harvey Bresek, stopped his work in the garden and came to greet the Swami. Harvey, Law Gottlieb introduced us. We were planting potatoes at that time, he said. This is Swami Bhaktivedanta. I came out of the garden and shook Swamiji's hand. I said, hello, Swami. He asked me, what are you doing? I told him that I was just planting potatoes. Then he asked me what I was doing with my wife. I didn't answer. With life, I didn't answer. After resting, yeah, interesting question. He then asked me what I was doing with my life. After resting for a few minutes, Prabhupada was ready for the kirtan. He and Lo went to a hilly pasture where the hippies had placed a wooden seat for Prabhupada before bower of wild flowers arranged like a band shell. Prabhupada took his seat and began chanting. The commune members, all of whom had been anticipating the Swami's visit, gathered eagerly for the group meditation. Mike Morrissey. Some people had clothes on, some people didn't, some were dancing around, but Swamiji wasn't looking at our bodies. He was looking at our souls and giving us the mercy we needed. I think this is where he's going to meet one of the great devotee. What is Maharaj's name? Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I'm thinking he's going to meet now. Prabhupada is in this in his Lowe's place community where 100 members are there. At another few hundred people come on weekend, and it's egg farm and they grow some vegetables. And they are different culture, and most of them are naked. Prabhupada met this man, Harvey, and Harvey came and shook hand with Prabhupada. He said that, what are you doing? I'm going to see. Prabhupada said, what are you doing with your life? He had no answer. He didn't answer. So anyway, here, he rested for some times. Then Kirtan began, and he was offered a place out of respect. And Prabhupada took his seat and began chanting. The commune members, all of them had been anticipating the Swami's visit, gathered eagerly. Some of them are, with clothes, some of them are without clothes. So now we will do with this. Second, please go ahead.
The Kirtana was well received. One of the members of the commune was so enthralled by the Kirtan that he decided to put on his clothes and go back to San Francisco with the Swami. Prabhupada spoke very briefly, and then he prepared to leave, shaking hands and exchanging courtesies as he walked to the car. Although Srila Prabhupada hadn't spoken much philosophy, His kirtan left a deep impression on the hippies. At Morning Star, while leaving, he had told one of the young men, "Keep chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra," and they did. Low Gottlieb. The Swami was an extremely intelligent guy with a job to do. There was no sanctimony or holy pretension. None of that eyes lifted silently to the sky. All I remember is just a very pleasant, incredibly safe feeling. There is no doubt that the Mahamantra, once you get the Mahamantra into the head, it is there. It never stops. It is in the cells. It awakens the DNA or something. Shortly thereafter, half of the people at Morning Star had got seriously into chanting. Those that did were extremely sincere God seekers. Their aspiration was 1,000% sincere, considering the circumstances in which they were found. They were all dopers, that is for sure, but they definitely gave that up once they got in touch with the Mahamantra. His top cloth wrapped loosely around his shoulders. Prabhupada stood a last moment by the open door of the car and looked back in farewell to the devotees and the storefront temple. It was no longer a mere storefront, but had become something worthy. New Jagannath Puri. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had asked him to come here. Who among his god brothers could imagine how crazy these American hippies were? Hallucinating on drugs, crying out, "I am God." So many girls and boys, unhappy, mad, despite their wealth and education. But now through Krishna consciousness, some were finding happiness. So here, basically, everyone there in the community, they liked the kirtan, and one member was so enthralled that he followed Prabhupada to come back to San Francisco, and Prabhupada did not he did not speak much about philosophy, but the kirtan had a good impression on all the hippies at Morning Star. And Prabhupada, while leaving, told all of the people there to keep chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. And Low Gottlieb, he says that he basically appreciates Prabhupada, that there was no pretense or like anything false about Swamiji. Like everything was pleasant and very very nice. And then he praised the Mahamantra, that once the Mahamantra is into the head, basically it never stops. You keep thinking about it, and basically all the people, they like the Mahamantra that they got into chanting. And based on his thing, they were all seriously sincere God seekers, and they were they conditioned them when they came here. They were all like using drugs and everything, but they definitely gave that up once they got in touch with the Mahamantra. And then the second, at the end here, basically, I think we have been discussing about Prabhupada going back from San Francisco to New York. And here it says that what he had established in probably 3-4 months in San Francisco, it is now a new temple there, and all his god brothers cannot even imagine like how crazy people Prabhupada had to deal with. And now, because they came into Krishna consciousness, they were starting to feel happy.
Prasanthi, please.
The first day he had arrived, the reporter had asked him why he had come to Haitashwari. Because the rent is cheap, he had replied. His desire was to spread the movement of Lord Chaitanya. Why else would he have come to such a dilapidated little storefront to live next to a Chinese laundry and digger's store? The reporters had asked if he were inviting the hippies and bohemians to take to Krishna consciousness. Yes, he had said, everyone. But he had known that once joining him, his followers would become something different from what they had been before. Now, the devotees were a family. If they followed his instructions, they would remain strong. If they were sincere, Krishna would help them. Lord Jagannatha was present, and the devotees would have to worship him faithfully. They would be purified by chanting Hare Krishna and following their spiritual master's instructions. Prabhupada got into the car, accompanied by some of his disciples, and a devotee drove him to airport. Several carloads of devotees followed him. At the airport, the devotees were crying, but Prabhupada assured them he would return if they would hold a Ratha Yatra festival. You must arrange a procession down the main street, he told them. Do it nicely. We must attract many people. They have such a procession yearly in Jagannath Puri. At this time, the deity may leave the temple. He would have to return. He knew to tend the delicate devotional plants he had placed in their hearts. Otherwise, how could he expect these neophytes to survive in the ocean of material desires known as Haitashpuri? Repeatedly, he promised them he would return. He asked them to cooperate among themselves. Mukunda, Syamsundara, Garuda, Jayananda, Subhala, Gaurasundara, Hayagriva, Haridasa, and the girls. Prabhupada had a conversation with a reporter, and he asked why he had chosen Ayatashpuri, and he responds in a funny way. But the main reason he came there is to help the people over there and make them Krishna consciousness. And he replies that yes, I want to change the hippies and Bohemians, every one of them, and. And it also explains how the devotees are. They are like a good family, and they are following the instructions of their spiritual master. And now they have Jagannatha, Lord Jagannatha in the temple, and they are worshipping him as well. And by chanting, they are getting purified. And Prabhupada was leaving to New York. He got into the car. Many devotees followed him to the airport. And many devotees were crying because they are getting separated from their spiritual master. And Prabhupada assured all of them that he will definitely return if they will perform Jagannatha Rath Yatra over there, and to arrange it nicely as a procession down the main street. And he also knows that he planted they are like delicate devotional plants, and they need help. They are neophytes, and they have to survive in this material ocean. And for that, he has to return. And he asked everybody to cooperate among themselves.
Okay, Nipa, you can finish the last two sentences.
Yes, Prabhu.
Nipa, yeah, finish.
He would have to return. He would no. Only 2.5 months ago, he had arrived here at this very terminal, greeted by a throng of chanting young people. Many were now his disciples, although just barely assuming their spiritual identities and vows. Yet he felt no compunctions about leaving them. He knew that some of them might fall away, but he couldn't stay with them always. His time was limited. Srila Prabhupada, the father of two small bands of neophytes, tenderly left one group and headed east, where the other group waited in different mood, a mood of joyful reception. So it says only after 2.5 months he had arrived at his terminal. He was greeted by a throng of chanting young people. Many were his disciples by now, just barely assuming his spiritual identities and vows. He had felt no compunctions about leaving them. He knew some of them might fall away, but he could not stay. The time he had was very limited. The Srila Prabhupada was the father by now of two small bands of neophytes, and he tenderly left one group and headed towards the east, waiting in a different mood, a mood of joyful reception.
I see. New Jagannath Vidham ki jai. So such a wonderful journey, and glad it ended with where it started. It gives that he came. Some quick reflections, we can share. We have 6 minutes at this time. So it says 2.5 months, just 2.5 months. Prabhupada came to San Francisco, High Transbury. So and he was greeted. Uh, Janaki and Mukunda, with the help of with the help of Shyam Sundar and Malti. They will actually they got initiated now in this 2.5 months. So many things happen in 2.5 months. So they had no idea. No one had seen. First time everybody saw Prabhupada's while getting out of the airport. They were greeted with flowers and everything. Such a nicely they were taken care. And he opened the temple was inaugurated. You all remember the scenes, Prabhupada, how the hippies were disturbing again and again. So much they liked the kirtans. And deity installation was Malti got the Jagannath Baldev Subhadra. Shyam Sundar Prabhu carved the Jagannath Baldev Subhadra. Deity installation took place. Nice talk. Prabhupada visited different places. I would like to open up to all of you. You all want to share something from this?
I say that the fact that he was able to do all that in such a short time in San Francisco, right, and create something so concrete, and it speaks a lot to, I guess, one, Prabhupada's charisma, his charisma, but more so just how appealing Krishna consciousness is, and how attractive Krishna is once you hear about it. When someone starts telling you about it, or you start to experience a kirtan, or go to the lectures and be around devotees, as someone who's relatively new to this, it grabs you very quickly. And you can see just by the impact that Prabhupada was able to make in his time in New York, his brief time in New York, and then also in his brief time in San Francisco, speaks volumes to that.
It's a big achievement, San Francisco, establishing full community with temple and deities. 2.5 months. Whole life went, goes to convince somebody. Thank you. And anyone else want to share some reflections from this chapter?
Yeah, the part where Prabhupada explains that I am not the body.
Yes. That's a very easy way to explain. If I'm not the body, then who am I? So thank you. Anyone else?
Also, Prabhupada conducted the first Rath Yatra. No, I think not the first Rath Yatra. The first Jagannath deities, Baladev Subhadra deities, installed in the West Coast.
Yeah, in America actually, that's the first one. And devotees took by mistake the deities, the Jagannath, to the park. You remember that incident? Jagannath don't go like that. So that's why he asked everyone, I will come back if you hold a Yatra festival. Now another incentive. Yes.
Prabhupada was so tolerant that he visited the hippie storefront, even though they were all intoxicated and like as they sent multiple invitations as they are seeking his help. He tolerated their drug addiction and all, and gave kirtan over there. And he also went to Morning Star, where their life was also different. They are not wearing clothes and all, but he wanted to help everybody, and he was very tolerant and approached them to spread Krishna consciousness and help them.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Unbelievable society. unbelievable society. No one can imagine this kind of society exists in this world, at least for Indians. Prabhupada was such merciful. He was not at all affected by the environment. He gave what he needs to give, and it transformed people's heart just by giving the taste of chanting.
Yeah,
Yes.
usually other saints won't even step into such places, but out of mercy, he went to such places also.
Yes. Yeah. Then also we discussed that while in New York, San Francisco, he was translating, the books on Bhagavatam, right? Or Chaitanya, teachings of Lord Chaitanya also probably, he had plans. Also, he was working with the newer devotees. That's another part. They lost $6,000 because of the people's ignorance. We met Jayananda, who is going to carve the cart. We are going to discuss very soon in the next chapter, probably, or the following chapter. Anything final? Anyone else more want to share? Introduced the play. He gave the teaching lessons to the mothers. He conducted the initiations. He conducted the wedding ceremonies. For so many. He I don't know what else he tried. He tried many things actually. This simply wonderful recipe. You all got the recipe from this.
They had the kirtan on the beach.
Kirtan in the beach, yeah, the party. Devotees come. AJ owns that. He's planning to do this for marshmallows party and kirtan. Yeah, Jagannath was Upendra Vain. He was always agitated in the sense disturbed. He wanted, but finally came to stay with Prabhupada. The nice feast they always did, and ladies they cooked, and the feast, nice Sunday feast. Yeah, more than that, we forget. This is the place where I don't know. This is the place where the program took place. Allen Ginsberg came. Am I right? Did we read in this chapter or the previous chapter? Allen Ginsberg conducting the first program.
I think this chapter only.
This chapter, this is a huge chapter. We discussed a lot. Anyway, thank you so much for joining. We will continue new chapter 25 tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.